Hello everyone, I'm Cindy Winget, the author of Gothic Horror Mashups, and welcome to my channel. So in today's video, we're going to be doing another TBR video. I haven't done one of these in a hot minute, so just a refresher, I have assigned all of my shelves a number, and then I'm going to be rolling a dice, and then whatever numbered shelf gets chosen, I select a book from every shelf of that bookcase, and that is my TBR for the month. So normally I only do my thriller and horror books because doing a genre like romance, having like 6 romances back to back to back like that all month long, I think would drive me absolutely insane. So normally there's certain genres that I exclude, especially because I have more bookcases than I do the sides of the dice. But for today's month, we're going to mix it up a little bit and going to include fantasy and science fiction. And that is simply because last month I read nothing but thrillers. And so if a thriller bookcase gets chosen, then I'd have a whole nother month of nothing but thrillers. And I just think that would be too much. So I'm excluding thriller just for this month only. So let's go ahead and roll the dice and see what we get. Okay, I have this little round table next to my chair, and that's what we're going to use. 3. Okay. So it looks like my science fiction bookcase was the one chosen. So I've pretty well read all of these except for The Hive and his new YA book called Wakers. So I think I'm going to go ahead and choose The Hive. I've been putting this one off because I didn't really care for The Swarm that much. So I kind of been putting it off, but maybe it's time now. So I'm going to go ahead and choose The Hive for this shelf. Okay, let's move on down to here. Okay, so the only book on the shelf that I haven't read yet is Sunrise on the Reaping. But honestly, I would have chosen that anyways because it just barely came out and I'm excited for it. So that one's kind of a no-brainer. Okay, let's head on down to this shelf. Okay, so I know immediately which one I'm going to read on this one too. And that is All Better Now by Neil Shusterman. This one I also picked up, I think, a month ago. And I'm super, super excited for it. So that one's a no-brainer. It's definitely going to be that one. And then on this shelf, let's see. I've already got 2 YA books from the last 2 shelves, so I don't really want to do YA. So, like, all of these are YA, so I'm going to be looking over here, which doesn't give us too much of a choice, but, you know, I've been really hearing some good things about Adrian Tchaikovsky, but I haven't read anything by him yet. This is his newest release called Alien Clay, and look how beautiful that cover is. So I think I'm going to try this one. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of a cheat. But my sister has been hounding me to read some Sarah J. Maas, and I just barely picked up this book not too long ago. So technically this isn't science fiction. I only put it on the shelf because I needed to make more room on my fantasy shelves. And so while I'm making room for it, I just set it here temporarily. So it's a bit of a cheat because this is fantasy, not science fiction, but I do want to be able to talk to my sister about it because she's excited for me to read it. I'm very, very nervous to read it because I just don't know if it's going to be my thing. But maybe I should choose that one for her sake. Okay, let's head on down to the last shelf. Kind of have to crouch down. Well, the one that's kind of catching my eye is Wool. I've been wanting to read this trilogy for a while. I haven't seen the show because I always like to read the books first. It's pretty chunky. I mean, look how thick that is. It's like I believe it's like 600 pages long, but I don't know. I think I'm going to choose that one though, because I have been curious about it for a long time now. Okay, so those are the 6 books that I'm going to be reading in the month of April. Some of them are pretty thick, but I'm thinking the YA ones will go pretty quickly. So hopefully that will give me time to read the bigger ones. That's always the struggle with reading all fantasy or all science fiction in one month, is they tend to be larger books. And so, I don't know if I'll be able to read all of this in one month. I would like to, and I'm going to try my best, but I don't know for sure. I'm not going to read them in any particular order. I'm just going to, whatever my mood is at the time. So the first one I picked out was The Hive by Orson Scott Card and Aaron Johnson. So for those of you that might be familiar with Ender's Game, this is a prequel series going back to before Ender's Game, when the buggers first came to Earth, which is the alien race in this series. And so this is during the Second Formic War, where you're following like Mazer Rackham and people from the First Formic War. If you've read that trilogy, the first one's called Earth Unaware. So this is the second one, the second prequel trilogy. Man, this sounds confusing. But for those who are familiar with the Enderverse, you'll know exactly what this is. For those that have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm sorry. I pretty much muddled it. But basically, this is a prequel to Ender's Game. And I did not really care for the first book in this trilogy, and this is the second one. I sometimes wonder if the third one's ever going to come out. But anyways, that's besides the point. So I've been putting this book off for a really long time. It has the characters I love in it, but the plot itself from the first one was very plodding and kind of lame and slow. And so I don't really have necessarily high hopes for this, unfortunately. But it is the last book in the Enderverse series that I have not read. So I feel like the completionist in me really needs to read this eventually so that I can say that I've read all of the Ender books. So there's that, I guess. So I'm hoping I'll like this better than the first ones, but it doesn't have very high reviews. But, this happens to be one of the only books on that shelf that I haven't read yet. So it might be a good time to finally get around to this. And then speaking of prequels, the second one, which is Sunrise on the Reaping, this is also a prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy. So I'm sure most people are familiar with this because it's very popular, but this is a YA dystopian novel. And this follows Haymitch. So this is Haymitch Abernathy's Hunger Games from the 50th annual Hunger Games, which was the first Quarter Quell. And so this is like his tale. So I'm very hopeful that I'm going to like this better than The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I thought that one was okay, but I didn't absolutely love it. And I would much rather follow Haymitch than President Snow, to be honest. So I'm very hopeful that I'm going to like this, that it's going to be nostalgic and just fun. And then we have the start of a new series by Neil Shusterman, which is All Better Now. And this is also a YA dystopian trilogy, and this is about a virus. I can't remember what they call it, the Crown Royal virus. And it kills 1 in 25 people. But if you end up surviving this virus, then all of your negative emotions are gone. You don't feel stress. You don't feel depression. You don't feel greed. You don't feel like anything negative. So you're just completely content and happy with your life. And so there's different ways that people look at this. Some people are like, okay, but it kills a lot of people too. And other people are like eager to get infected and get their children infected so that they can have this euphoric, ideal society with no negative emotions. And then it sounds like there's going to be some corporate stuff because corporate greed is saying, oh, but without negative emotions, how are we going to sell our products? Because half of our products, is bent towards people's depression and greed and their envy, And without those negative emotions, how are we going to sell our products? Because people are just going to be content with what they have and be content where they are. And so this sounds like it's going to have a lot of commentary about that. But it sounds like we're following 3 different people, which I love about Neil Shusterman because you get to see all the aspects of the society and about these ideas. So I'm guessing one perspective will be from the perspective of the greedy corporations. Another perspective will be from the people that want to get everybody infected. And then another perspective will be from people that are leery of this virus and like, okay, let's not just hurry and infect everybody, you know, which kind of could be problematic for people that don't want to think about COVID because they're kind of are parallels, you know. But anyways, I just think this is going to be really fun. And Neil Schusterman is a great storyteller. And like I said, I love that his stories tend to be nuanced and he likes to show all aspects of his ideas, which I absolutely love about him. So I'm very excited to start a new series by this author. And then I chose Alien Clay by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So I haven't read anything by this author yet, but he's very beloved in the science fiction genre and I've been meaning to get around to his books. This is his newest release, and this is by a man who is part of like political activism, and he gets in trouble and he gets sent to this alien planet. And there's no alien life there. Well, I mean, there's alien life, but there's no alien civilization. So it'd be like an alien being sent to Earth, but there's no humans anymore. But it still has our animals and our insects and our plants and everything. It just doesn't have the aliens that used to live there. It's just their planet. And so he gets sent to this work camp to basically work until he dies. But, you know, he obviously wants to try and get out of it. But at the same time, he's very excited to be able to explore this new alien planet and all of the different flora and fauna and all of that. And that's what I'm most excited about reading this book, is I want to learn about all these alien things. And apparently there's some type of secret that he's going to discover, so I'm pretty excited for this one. I think it'll be really fun. Then I chose A Court of Thorns and Roses. I chose this mainly for my sister's sake because she really wants me to read it. But I'm going to be honest, I'm not really into the whole fairy romantasy genre. It's just not really my thing. I read the back of this and it sounds a lot like The Wicked Prince by Holly Black, and I did not like that book. So I'm pretty nervous to read this, but it sounds like there's this girl who is hunting in the woods and she kills this wolf, which ends up not being a wolf at all, but ends up being a fairy. And so another fairy in wolf shape, you know, comes for retribution and drags her off to the land of fairy, or the land of Faye, I should say. You know, obviously she doesn't like him at first, but then they end up striking up a romance and she gets involved with the Faye and she learns about their world, and then there's like a shadow or something that's creeping up, which ends up being a threat to this realm. And now that she's starting to love this realm and love this man, she wants to try and save it. So yeah, I don't know. It doesn't sound like it's going to be for me, I'll be honest. Maybe if I read this 15 years ago, I would probably absolutely love it. But I've just kind of strayed from that. It's just not something that interests me anymore. And I've read a lot of books that are similar and they're always just okay. And I'm afraid that this is going to be pretty smutty, and I'm not into smutty books. So yeah, I am mainly reading this strictly for my sister. I hope I like it. And at the very least, I have something to talk to her about. So yeah, there's that. And then last, I chose Wool by Hugh Howey. At first, I thought this was a YA novel, but I don't think it is. I think it's adult, just from reading the back. But basically, you have this dystopian world. I guess I'm reading a lot of dystopian books this month. I didn't really realize that till now. But anyways, yet another dystopian, but this one's adult. And basically they live in this time where the earth, or the air rather, has become toxic. And so they're no longer able to be outside because the atmosphere will kill you. And so they all headed underground and they all live in this one big silo. And they've been there for a couple generations. And basically people in the next generations are like, well, maybe it's safe to go outside now. And the older generation's like, no, it's too dangerous. You can't do that. And they're like, oh, but what if there is a possibility that we could live outside of this stupid silo? Wouldn't that be worth checking out? And so as punishment, they're given exactly what they want. And they get shoved out of the silo. And nobody ever knows whether they live or not and what happens to them. And so our main character, it sounds like she becomes the new sheriff in town because the other one retired or something. And so she takes his position, but then she starts to realize that maybe not everything about this society is what she thought, and she's starting to uncover some secrets. So it sounds like it should be a fun time, and I'm anxious to read it. I am a little bit nervous because it's like almost 600 pages, which if I really, really like it, that's not a problem. You know, I've read books that big and I can just fly through it if I like it. But if it's something that I'm not totally invested in, then 600 pages is a little nerve-wracking. But I've become a lot better at DNFing things, so I guess if that's the case, I'll just DNF it. So I don't know why I'm nervous, because if I don't like it, I could just not read it. But anyways, I have been meaning to read this for a few years now, so I'm excited to finally get to it. So I know this video was pretty short, but I hope you still enjoyed it. And if you did, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I post every Friday, and I hope to see you in the next video. See ya!